Okay, so check this out. I am in Irvine and I am doing what's called a wrap removal. I can only assume that most of you are familiar with what's called a full vehicle wrap. It's the latest and greatest in rolling billboard advertising. So back in the day, it was simply die cut vinyl decals like I have in my van, but now they literally wrap your entire vehicle in this vinyl material with adhesive on it. So the point of the lesson today is diversification, but even below that or preceding that is creativity. I think it was Einstein that said, I would rather be creative than intelligent. Why? Because creativity has no limitations. You're only limited by your ability to create. So everywhere around you is opportunity. Now, am I suggesting that you diversify if you're just starting out? Not necessarily so. What I'm suggesting is that you keep your mind constantly open. You've got 2 eyes, 2 ears, 1 mouth. So if you want to reduce it down to the simple, I know that I should be listening and looking at least twice as much as I should be talking. I know, ironically, when I get in front of this camera, I just pull my own talking, like I'm like Chatty Cathy, okay? But I'm trying to deliver you a message. And the message is creativity. So everywhere I go, I'm just an idea machine. So I'm gonna give you a couple examples. So about 8 years ago, when the economy started to really tank, I saw the writing on the wall. And this is to use a metaphor, this is what you want to do in life, not just in detailing, but in life, is be able to look over the horizon. In other words, as I try to teach my kids, you're driving along the street and you come upon an accident. Do you want to be stuck in the middle of that accident or traffic and then try to figure out what to do? Or do you want to constantly be looking up ahead and seeing the horizon and seeing what's about to come up so that you can adjust before you have to react? Remember, responding is always better than reacting. The more you can see over the horizon, the more that you can respond before you're put in a situation where you have to go in reactionary mode. What am I getting at? Well, the point is I saw the economy tanking. So I knew the web or the internet was here to stay. And I knew that I need to become relevant with all these people that I knew would be searching for detail services on the internet. And that the old school mentality was shifting to what I call the two-dimensional world of the internet. And that's where I started to learn how to build and create and shoot pictures and edit, and just the endless can of worms that represents. And before I even started, I literally could barely send an email. In fact, I didn't even see the purpose of an email. I thought, who needs an email? That's just a waste of time. My fingers are way too slow. I'm just gonna pick up the phone, call the number, and go the direct approach. That's what I prefer still to this day, is the direct approach. So when I first started out, I didn't know squat about anything. No computer, techie stuff, none of that. So I was literally starting at ground zero. Look at it this way. It's nice to have goals. It's nice to know, and I'm gonna borrow something from one of my favorite books, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. Can't recommend that enough. He talks about a process called starting with the end in mind, which means you create the vision of what you want the end to look like. Then you work backwards from there. But let me add to that. Another critical factor is understanding where you begin. So let's say I'm gonna climb Mount Everest, and it's, I don't know what, 30,000 feet. Don't quote me on that. Just to say it's really, really tall, okay? But what if I'm starting at the very bottom and you've got another guy that's starting out at 10,000 feet, okay? So the distance he has to go is gonna be far different than the distance that I have to go. So it's important to have a vision and an end in mind, but it's also important to understand where you're starting out. So where I started out with my web creation and building, I don't think it could be any further than ground zero. It was actually probably in the negative because I was just so challenged, let's go with that, challenged as far as that whole technology, computers and so forth. But I knew that I better do something. I knew that I was still going to be in business in 5 years. At least that was the goal. I knew likely that I would still be alive in 5 years. But I knew if I didn't do anything, that I'd be in the same spot and probably a worse spot in 5 years if I did nothing. So let me reduce it down to the ridiculously simple. If you want to make a change, you gotta make a change. I have always looked towards the horizon to see what new themes of life were coming or headed our direction. So I learned how to build a website. I learned how to do all that stuff. It was the most aggravating, or I should say one of the most aggravating experiences of my life. Now I'm pretty good at it. I can get my way around it. I can create a page, write it. It's like anything. The more you do it, the better you get. 90% of my business every month comes from that website. And I don't mean the best auto detailing tips, because that's for you guys. And you guys starting out, or you do-it-yourselfers. I'm talking about autofetishdetail.com. That's where people here in Orange County, California, do a search and they find detail services. Whether it's Orange County auto detailing, car detailing Orange County, mobile detailing Orange County, detailing services, luxury auto detailing, whatever, RV detailing, boat detailing, and that's where I'm very diversified. So when you start adding up all these little ones and twosies, because the obvious is the obvious, which is car detailing. We all think very narrow-mindedly, okay, I want to work on cars, car detailing. Okay, but what about specialty? Like I've got web pages that are optimized for car leather interior cleaning, car upholstery cleaning, decal removal, debadging, emblem removal, vinyl graphics removal, vinyl decal removal, gel coat restoration, fiberglass restoration. So I get all these people, whether they're boat owners, RV owners, watercraft, commercial equipment, go down the list. I get all these people doing searches, and guess who they find? Yes, they find me. So this just happens to be one of the specialties. And by the way, it's this industry, the graphics industry, that introduced me to one of my favorite products, which is Rapid Remover. And I've talked about it in many, many videos, and I cannot recommend that product enough. It is an amazing adhesive remover, better than I've ever used, and I've tried all the tar and adhesive removers. This stuff is phenomenal. But I also use it on the interiors when I've got like a big wad of grease and oil. Anyhow, it's a great product. So talk about the good unseen consequences of the moment. Now I realize that I need to become relevant on the internet, or I will dwindle in disbelief. Okay? I will be like the grape that withers on the vine and eventually falls off. And that's what would happen, or I would have to go back out and pound the streets like a lot of you beginners are having to do and just network my butt off. Now I still do that, it's just that I'm not required to do it, and I just do it when it's convenient. Because like I said, 90% of my business comes from my website every single month. Likely you will not have a budget to do that. You will have to learn. It took me 6-7 years now doing that to become that relevant. But I've been relevant with the search engine, the search engines for a very long time. So it has kept me in business, and every year it just grows and grows and grows. So to try to bring this video full circle, this is where the wrap removal comes in. And I saw a trend, and that trend was that suddenly I start seeing these vehicles, these trucks, these vans, these cars with full vehicle wraps, all about advertising. And I'm thinking, what's going to happen to those wraps in 3, 4, 5 years when A, the company goes out of business, B, the lease of the vehicle expires and they got to turn it in, and they can't turn it in with a wrap on it, or C, they want to sell it for whatever reason, or D, like in this case, the employee is no longer working for the company and it happens to be an employee van, and now the company's got to pay to have it removed. or the material just degrades, because wraps are not permanent. They will last you anywhere from 3 to 5 to 7 years based on how you take care of it. And like everything else in life, not all wrap material is created equal. So I thought, wow, I think there's a market for that. So I started networking to the wrap shops, the decal shops, and guess what I found out? They hate doing this stuff. They love to install it all day long, but you ask them to remove it and they will do anything to avoid it. Well, that's where I come in. They don't want to do it, so they send the work to me. So that's one way the diversification helps me, is I get leads or jobs from them, but also on my website, people. Let's say the office manager in this case, she's going on the internet and she's thinking, okay, we've got this van, it's got a full wrap. In fact, I got to go ask her what search term she even used. Some people always just keep it generic and just do auto detailing. A lot of people, when it comes to a specialized service like this, they will do wrap removal, how to remove a wrap, whatever. Guess who comes up? You're right, I do. So I get a job like this and it's cool. So the goal that I'm trying to teach you is to use your creative part of your brain. It is endless. It's only limited by your creativity. And it's like any other thing, any other part of your body called a muscle. The more you use it, the more it grows. Okay? So you need to become an idea machine. I promise you, there's opportunity everywhere you're at. You could be by a marina, by a lake, you could be by an RV storage yard. I mean, go down the list. There's opportunity. You just have to keep your mind open, use your 2 eyes, your 2 ears, always have your radar going off. You know, you're seeking out that opportunity and you're looking for opportunity that isn't necessarily obvious at a casual observation. That's where your creative brain steps in and it thinks, wait a minute, I wonder if there's opportunity there. I'm going to investigate. So let me take you around, because I've been on this for a couple hours now. I didn't know if I was going to do a video, but I thought, wait a minute, this would make a good moment to teach you guys about creativity, where it really can keep you in business. Let me pull back and I'll show you essentially the before, even though I've started, or I've gotten the front end done. Now, if you want to learn something about wrap removal, then stick along, because how they do wraps, literally, this is a sheet of vinyl material. It's flexible and it has adhesive on the back. So what they do is they print it in full color. They plot it out on a graphics program, and then they cut it, and it is quite a process. But when it comes to removing, it can be very difficult for many reasons. Now, this is not too bad because the wrap is less than a year old. So the older it gets, the more difficult it is to remove, because it really degrades to the point where it's brittle, it can crack, and then you're really screwed because you cannot get it to peel. Now, I'm using my professional grade heat gun, which is a Porter cable, and this gets so hot it will literally blister the paint on this car. So I can use it to heat up the wrap, and it helps release the adhesive behind it, so that when I pull, it pulls much easier than I'm having to do right now, because this is cool. Now, something I've talked about in many videos, and I want to address here, is about managing expectations and risk management. So what I do, like in a situation like this, which is different, I mean, those rules are the same. I think you need to figure out how to manage expectations and do risk management regardless of whatever you're doing in life. Now, how do I apply this to this specific situation? Well, because I have enough experience doing this, I know that there's certain inherent risk associated with taking off a wrap. So whoever I'm engaging with, whether it's the private owner or the business owner or the office manager, whoever has sought me out and I'm dealing at a business level with that person, I have a discussion with them. So when it comes to wraps, for example, not all wrap companies will inform the end user as to the limitations or the risk associated with wraps. Let me go down the list. They are temporary. They will last 3 to 7 years based on the material that they're using and how much the customer is willing to spend. So they could offer brand A, B, or C. A, it's kind of like window tinting. It's not all created equal. So if you just want a budget wrap, you go with a budget material. Well, guess what? That budget material is going to be limited in how long it lasts. So if they think that they're going to get 5 years out of it, that's unrealistic. And then 3 years later or 4 years later, and they realize that their vehicle wrap that's supposed to be advertising their company for them in a good way now looks like dog doo-doo, and they want to remove it. Well, the ship is kind of sailed as far as its durability, and now they hire someone like, hey, what's going on? You guys want to be on video?
No.
You sure? Customers over here. Then they call me out, and the ship is sailed, and so the vinyl material is so degraded it costs them far more to remove because they didn't plan ahead. So that's one variable. Another variable is that when they're installing the wrap, just like detailers, the installers are not all created equal. So they can, as they're cutting with razor blades, they can actually cut through the paint, but then they just cover it up, because when they do the wrap and they lay it out digitally, there's going to be some overlap. So they may trim a piece here and then it gets overlapped with some more layer. So their razor cut on the paint is going to be covered until a guy like me comes in and I uncover it and it's like, ah! So that's what I have to tell them, is like, hey, I can't control what I find underneath. And if the car has been repainted, if you're pulling the wrap off, even though you're using a heat gun to release that adhesive, it may pull off some of the clear coat or some of the paint with it. So those are some of the risks that are inherent to wraps. And so that's where I manage the expectations and do risk management with the person first, so that I do not get blamed for something that I had no control over or that I did not cause to happen. So that's just a little bit part of the nuances of this particular specialty service of detailing. Do I recommend you diversify? Not particularly, not unless you really see a golden opportunity. I say you stick with the basics, develop your basics, add upon it slowly, whether it's emblem removal, vinyl decal removal, and in this case, wrap removal. So there's my 2 cents in 500,000 words or less. So here's our finished product, and I'll show you some damage that was revealed. We've got this big gouge that they wrapped right over. And this van, once again, I didn't have the privilege of seeing the van prior to it being wrapped. So literally, it's like unwrapping a present. You just don't know what you're gonna get. So take a look at the roof. Totally rusted, paint's all peeling away. So this van was far from perfect when it was wrapped. I did notice that there were some cuts in the gaskets around the tail lamps, and here we have some missing paint that came off. But there's our final product. We've got some dents down on the rocker panels there. So this is where it's good to, once again, manage the expectations and do damage control before it happens. They actually had removed this emblem to wrap it, so the wrap was completely underneath it. So I had to pop this off and then glue it back on. So there's a little tip for you. Always carry some crazy glue with you. Not traditional glue, but you want something that's going to bond immediately, because you never know what you're going to have to glue, and you don't have time to sit around and hold it or tape it up. So that's my little added tip for you. Anyhow,